Your cat is dying of thirst. A full bowl of water stands right next to him. Fresh, clean, filled about an hour ago. He walks up to it, looks at it, and then turns away. A moment later he jumps onto the sink, waits for you to turn on the tap, and drinks for a long time with clear satisfaction. It is the same water, but in a different form. You assume it is pickiness, maybe spoiled behavior or a strange preference. You might think the bowl is wrong or the place is uncomfortable. Perhaps you even conclude that your cat is just being difficult for no reason. But that conclusion is incorrect and misses what is actually happening. When a cat ignores a bowl and insists on running water, it is not a whim and not a way to control you. It is one of the oldest protective mechanisms built into the feline brain. In the wild, this mechanism directly affected survival and determined whether an animal would live or die. Inside your home, it still works with the same precision, but in an environment it was never designed for. There is a specific moment in the story when you realize what your cat actually senses above the bowl before walking away. After that moment, you will no longer see this behavior as strange. In fact, you will most likely stand up and move the bowl immediately. To understand this, we need to start from the beginning, and that beginning is water itself. In the wild, water is not just water, it is a decision with consequences. Still water, like a puddle or a pond, accumulates everything that enters it. Dead animals, waste, bacteria, parasites, and organic material all remain and multiply. For a small predator like a cat, a single sip of contaminated water could lead to infection, inflammation, and eventually death. Running water behaves differently, constantly renewing itself and carrying away contaminants. Its surface does not stagnate, and harmful organisms do not reach dangerous concentrations as easily. Over millions of years, the feline brain learned a simple rule. Moving water is safe, while still water is suspicious. This rule is not learned behavior, but a deeply embedded instinct. Your bowl of water is still, no matter how fresh or clean it is. From your perspective, it may be perfect, filtered, and recently replaced. From your cat's perspective, it behaves exactly like a potentially dangerous source. The tap, on the other hand, represents moving water. It flows, changes, and signals freshness. That is why your cat waits by the sink every morning. He is not asking for entertainment or attention. He is asking for water his nervous system recognizes as safe. This is not a preference, but a biological filter working exactly as intended. The environment is artificial, but the instinct remains unchanged, and your cat is simply following it. There is another layer to this that most people do not realize. A cat's sense of smell is dramatically more sensitive than yours, capable of detecting subtle chemical differences. What you perceive as neutral water is, for your cat, a complex profile of dissolved substances. Minerals, traces of chlorine, organic particles, and even residue from cleaning products are all detectable. The material of the bowl also matters, as plastic, ceramic, and metal release different compounds over time. When your cat approaches the bowl and smells the water, he is analyzing its entire history. He can detect how long it has been sitting and what has entered it during that time. Even small amounts of dust or fur are noticeable to him. If the bowl is made of plastic, it often carries a persistent odor that intensifies with use. You may not notice it, but your cat certainly does. To him, this smell signals contamination or unfamiliarity. Even perfectly clean water can carry chemical cues that do not match what his instincts define as safe. The presence of chlorine alone is enough to alter his perception significantly. When he smells something that does not belong to natural running water, his brain interprets it as a warning. That is the moment he decides to walk away. It is not refusal, not stubbornness, but a functional safety response. His system is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Now consider the tap again from his perspective. The water is moving, which is the first critical signal. It has just come through the system and has not been exposed to dust or environmental particles. It is also colder, and in nature, cold water often indicates a fresh source. But there is another factor that is rarely mentioned. Running water produces sound, and that sound carries meaning. The subtle noise of flow, drops, and movement signals a living source. A cat's hearing is extremely sensitive and tuned to detect such cues. He hears the water before he even sees it, and that alone already influences his decision. The sound confirms what the instinct expects. This is not classical conditioning or a learned trick. It is a direct alignment between sensory input and an ancient biological filter. The sound, movement, and temperature all match what the feline brain classifies as safe. The bowl does not provide those signals, no matter how clean it is. That is why the preference is consistent and persistent. The cat is not choosing comfort, he is following recognition. And recognition happens below conscious thought. It is automatic and immediate. From his perspective, the choice is obvious. One source fits the pattern, the other does not. There is also an uncomfortable fact behind all of this. Cats tend to drink less water than they actually need. This is not an exaggeration, but a widespread issue that often goes unnoticed. Their ancestors evolved in arid environments where water was scarce. As a result, their bodies adapted to conserve fluids efficiently. They produce concentrated urine and rely heavily on moisture from food. The sensation of thirst is weaker compared to humans. In the wild, this worked because prey contains a high percentage of water. Eating provided hydration without the need to drink separately. In a domestic setting, especially with dry food, the situation changes completely. Dry food contains very little moisture, far less than natural prey. The cat now depends on external water sources to maintain hydration. However, the instinct has not adapted to this change. The body still signals thirst weakly, and the cat does not compensate by drinking more. This leads to a gradual and often unnoticed state of dehydration. Over time, this can contribute to problems with the kidneys and urinary system. Many owners only discover this when symptoms appear. By that point, the issue has already been developing for a long time. Veterinarians are well aware of this pattern. Urinary tract issues are among the most common health problems in domestic cats. One of the primary contributing factors is insufficient water intake. A cat that only drinks from the tap is not being difficult. It is following a correct instinct in an incorrect environment. The problem is that access to running water depends on you. When you are not there, the cat often drinks less than needed. This gap accumulates over time and affects health. The behavior is logical, but the conditions are not. To address this, the environment needs to be adjusted rather than the cat. Movement is the most important factor to recreate. Water fountains for cats are not decorative items, but functional solutions. They provide continuous flow, sound, and oxygenation. These elements together create a signal that the cat recognizes as safe. Studies show that cats with access to fountains drink significantly more water. The increase is not due to novelty, but due to instinct alignment. The brain receives the right signals and accepts the source. This directly influences hydration levels. The material of the bowl also plays a role. Plastic is the least suitable option because it absorbs odors and develops micro-scratches that harbor bacteria. Ceramic and stainless steel are more neutral and stable. However, even more important is the presence or absence of smell. A bowl that seems clean to you may still carry detectable residues. Over time, these accumulate and change how the water is perceived. Choosing the right material reduces this effect. It does not eliminate the instinct, but it removes unnecessary triggers. Small changes can have a noticeable impact. Placement is another critical factor. In nature, cats do not drink water near their food. The area around prey is associated with contamination and biological residue. Water sources are typically separate and located in safer spaces. When you place the bowl next to food, it creates a conflicting signal. Moving the water to a different location often increases consumption immediately. A quiet place with good visibility works best. The cat needs to feel secure while drinking. This change alone can improve behavior without additional tools. Temperature also influences perception. Cooler water is associated with freshness and safety. Water that has been sitting for several hours becomes warmer and less appealing. From an instinctive perspective, this suggests stagnation. Replacing the water more frequently helps maintain the correct signal. Doing it once per day is often not enough. 2 or 3 times per day is more effective, especially in warmer conditions. These adjustments are simple but align better with natural expectations. The goal is not to force drinking, but to remove barriers. The next time your cat jumps onto the sink and looks at the tap, you will understand what is happening. It is not a whim, not manipulation, and not an attempt to wake you up early. It is an ancient filter responding to signals it recognizes. That filter existed long before bowls, apartments, and plumbing systems. It once determined whether drinking was safe or dangerous. Your cat hears the water and processes it instantly. He identifies it as a safe source without hesitation. And what he is asking from you is very simple. He just wants you to turn it on.